Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Roman Raconteur, and I hope you're having a great week. Last week I mentioned that the Histories of Herodotus is my favorite Penguin classic for a variety of reasons, literary, historical, personal, and I wanted to thank everybody for the really kind comments that I received. I really appreciated them, my family really appreciated them, so thank you. And in preparation for a read-along of Herodotus in November, I had started rereading Persian Fire by Tom Holland, which is a very good nonfiction book that, covers the same Greco-Persian wars that Herodotus does. And part of that is because Tom Holland loves the histories of Herodotus, and he's loved them since he was like 12. He's on record saying this, to a degree that some years after publishing Persian Fire, he did a new translation of Herodotus for Penguin. But the book succeeds on a number of levels. First, it's half the length of the history, so it works as a more focused, sort of history. We don't have rabbit trails off into Egypt and, curiosities about different, sea creatures and things like that. Rather, Holland is, and this is what makes Holland a great, a very excellent historian to read, in my opinion, a very readable historian, is he's fascinated by historical personalities. He really sees them as characters within this massive narrative of history, and so he looks for those quirks, for those personalities, the aspects of a person that are going to stick with us. His description of Themistocles works on this. He talks about how Themistocles, though of aristocratic birth, his father had never shown the slightest interest in holding public office. His mother, horror of horrors, was not even Athenian born. He goes on, Themistocles had recognized with the instinctive cynicism that would always mark his love affair with celebrity that in a state run by the people there could be only one certain gauge of fame. How can you rate me, he would ask his friends, when I have not yet made anyone jealous? In 494 BC, this brilliant and ambitious young man celebrated his 30th birthday and became old enough after years of waiting to stand for election to the archonship. So he goes after it, and bull-necked, crop-haired, solid of body and face, Themistocles had the appearance, so posterity would judge, of a true hero, one indomitable, indestructible, packed with strength. Yet he was simultaneously, in his intelligence, the very opposite of muscle-bound. The workings of his mind, infinitely mobile and serpentine, would ultimately become a thing of wonder to his fellow citizens and of alarm. Not a dark art required of the politicians under the Athenians' new form of government, but Themistocles showed himself its master. He could infight, he could network, he could spin. Above all, and most crucially, he knew how to make himself visible. And so we're treated right away. And that's halfway through the book, because the first half of the book is all about the rise of the Persian Empire. But as soon as we get to Sparta, we're treated right away to just, who are these kings? Who are these, these kings in Sparta? Who are these leaders in Athens who are constantly at each other's throats? And he shows the same fascination with the kings of Persia, with Cyrus, with Darius, with Xerxes. He finds them just so interesting, and because of that, he wants us to be interested in these individuals. And one thing that I think works really well in Persian Fire, beyond Holland's fascination with historical personality, is he really goes into detail around the level of organization of the Persian Empire. Why to that state, with its kings and who those kings were, it felt like a logical extension to extend the empire through Greece into Europe. That made sense, and so he really goes into some detail, sort of building up that this is a conflict that each side can views itself as in the right in making, and then he his characters, his descriptions of the battles of Marathon and Thermopylae and Salamis are fantastic, and he extends it all the way through to the Battle of Plataea, and ultimately the growth of the Delian League in Athens, and then the Peloponnesian League in Sparta, and sort of this one-page coda of eventually they end up going to war. But it's a great book. I highly recommend it. The Persian Fire, by the way, the title kind of refers to three different aspects. One is that the Persians famously burned Athens, and then Athens, after the wars were over, rebuilt the temples, rebuilt the Acropolis, rebuilt the city, and sort of rose like a phoenix from those ashes. So that's one aspect of the Persian fire. Another deals with the emphasis of the Persian fire as an aspect of the Zoroastrian faith that was a key part of Persian culture at that time. And then the third aspect is that the Persian Empire, with its sophisticated level of organization, used fire signals as part of their way to send messages all down, the roads across their massive empire for communication to the king, the great king. So I highly recommend this book. Like I said, it is very much, based in the Histories of Herodotus, but Holland also, loves to quote from Plutarch's Lives. He loves his classical sources. A great focus book just on Salamis is by Barry Strauss, The Battle of Salamis. And Holland also has written a just fantastic book on the final years of the Roman Republic called Rubicon. This was, I believe, written just a couple years before Persian Fire. And then it's interesting, the Zoroastrian, religion that the Persian Empire had still exists, but not to the not with the number of adherents that it once had, certainly. And it's interesting, the Viking Portable World Bible actually includes it here. And what I find interesting is every other religion listed in the Viking Portable World Bible here has a penguin classic devoted to like writings from its scriptures. What's interesting is, as far as I know, there's not a penguin classic on Zoroastrian writing. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I have just a vague familiarity from this book and from sort of other works like nonfiction works like Persian Fire that share those details. But I don't believe there's a penguin classic or even an Oxford World Classic of the writings from that religion. So I would just be curious if anybody knows of one. So again, highly recommend Persian Fire by Tom Holland. Thanks everyone. Bye.